Okay, we are live on all the social media platforms. Okay, so thank you so much everyone for joining in. So another thing we pride ourselves is on starting events on time and finishing on time. So it's 5 p.m. There was a small hiccup. We had some problem with Zoom, so we moved to the other link. So some of you would have registered and are going through the old link. And if you are watching us on social media, you can just hop onto the event page and you'll see the right link where you can join in the Zoom and ask questions. Uh, and some of you will be just joining in on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. So in case if you have any questions towards the second half of the session, you can ask those questions. We'll take up those questions. uh, I'm Jatin. I'm one of the co-founder of HR Network. We host a lot of engaging startup networking meetups, and on our website there is a one-on-one video call feature where you can get connected with a lot of other founders. So we do this weekly series where we have a very specific theme, and we have a lot of awesome speakers who join us and interact with the community. Uh, so today we have Yashas. The theme of today's is building D2C brands. So this is a rising phenomena that is going on. That a lot of people are just venturing out on start. Shopify's rise is in a way due to DTC brands. Yashas has a pretty interesting experience. He started his own brand, joined the agency, led a lot of interesting initiatives, and with his current initiative, he's trying to help a lot of other aspiring D2C branders to scale up. So a lot of interesting things. So Yashas, thank you so much for joining in.
Thanks, Jatin. Thank you for having me.
If you can just briefly give us your intro and then we'll get started with our discussions.
Background. I was in digital consulting with Dentsu Webchutney, post which I got into the D2C space with a couple of brands. The first brand that we started is called Everpret. So we make work accessories for women specifically. We also have two other smaller brands that are still sort of kicking off the ground. One's called Urban Dog, which is in the premium pet accessory space. And the third one is called Gaia, which is in the feminine hygiene space. So we deal with menstrual cups and menstrual cup washes and lubricants and things like that. So moving towards a more sustainable, eco-friendly sort of feminine hygiene solution. So those are the three brands that we run, and again, been heavily involved in the D2C ecosystem for the past 3.5 years. Experimented a lot with Shopify and other tech platforms, and again, basically the entire ecosystem.
Awesome. Yes, just to get your background out, like you studied in Australia. So if you
Yeah.
can just share
So
the timeline how
yeah,
you.
so I did a dual degree in Australia in economics and finance. So that was for 4 years from 2008 to 2012. Post which I actually ran another startup called Buttons and Threads. It was in the custom clothing space for men's. So much like what Bombay Shirt Company does offline, but we did it online for the export market. So yeah, and then post which I was at Dentsu Webchutney, and then post that started my own D2C brands.
So when you started your first company, what was that key trigger, eureka moment for you to get started with that particular?
So that was largely a very unoccupied space in India at the time. And we wanted to compete in the international market because we knew that we could produce this in India for a much cheaper price. So that was the eureka moment for us. So it was largely a quality and price competitiveness that drove us to start that brand.
Okay, and then you joined Dentsu Webchutney, and Everpret started after you left them, or
Yeah, Everpret started sort of, my seniors in Webchutney helped start me off with a small round of funding, and that's how I started the business.
so what was the key thesis to start Everpret?
So it was largely due to observation. We noticed that women, new employees that come into work, were given a laptop backpack, normally produced by a Dell or HP. You know, the black sort of nylon backpacks that most women carry. And then they'd also carry another handbag and their lunchbox. And either they're carrying 2 to 3 bags at some point in time, and that particular laptop backpack never really suited their work attire. It didn't sort of give a corporate or a premium feel. Right. So it was largely due to observation. Then I started working with a designer to marry the style and functionality of the product. So we developed a handbag that carries your laptop and your charger and your umbrella, sunglasses, pens, makeup, accessories, all work essentials basically, and package it in a very sort of stylish, on trend design product. So Yeah, so great response on Everpret. We've been going quite strong. We've had our ups and downs in terms of quality and supply chain, things like that. But yeah, good learnings, good experience, good product that has been taken well in the market.
Okay. Yes, somehow we were able to hear your voice clearly before you had this headphone up.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
Unplug that then. Okay. There was just some background noise. So, okay.
The, uh, so one of the thing you mentioned that you when you started Everts, right? You identified that particular thing. So you must have got few other ideas also, like, or was this the idea that you worked on, or there are a few other white spaces you saw and then you evaluated? What was that?
No, so it was an idea that came out of observation. So this was the only idea that I had at the time. And then having delved into the D2C ecosystem, we had the bandwidth to sort of initiate other brand launches as well, which is where the other two brands sort of come into play. But Everpret is still the strongest brand in our sort of portfolio.
Okay, and now you are trying to help a lot of aspiring D2C founders. So what was the thesis about starting million label partners?
Yeah, so basically, we realize that we have a lot of efficiencies in place and operations in place, right? And so that sort of gave us an advantage to help other D2C founders plug and play into our systems very easily. So apart from just the Shopify knowledge, there's a lot of things that come in to play in regards to the marketing, in regards to the supply chain, in regards to the logistics, and plus warehousing, storage, etc. So we have that entire sort of central stack in place. So any sort of entrepreneur who wants to start a D2C brand would approach us, and we'd help them get set up and start operations as soon as possible.
Okay, and yes, a lot of people who will be watching this video are the D2C founders or the planning to start their own D2C brand. So when you started up, what were those key challenges? Like, was it in sourcing, or was it in branding, or getting the word
Yeah,
out?
so I think the most time that we spent was on product itself. It's really, really important in the D2C space to get your product right. It has to be, you have to run surveys, you have to test the product, you have to do a bunch of sampling. And once it has been sort of given the nod with focus groups and a large sort of small base of customers, then it's good to go and good to scale. Right. So we weren't worried about the operational bit. We weren't worried about the tech. We weren't worried about the logistics, because all of those are systems that fall into place eventually. But it's mostly the product. So we spent a good 6 to 8 months just on the product itself.
Okay. And in your experience being in a D2C ecosystem, what were the challenges that were there 4 years back, but now a lot of things have evolved and there are no more challenges, but there are newer set of challenges. So what are those newer challenges? If
Yeah.
you can compare.
So I think the challenges in our sort of early days was largely due to operations and logistics. It was still a nascent stage, and Flipkart, Amazon sort of dominated the logistics market. Now there are other third-party logistic providers who are very good in terms of operations and efficiency. So that's improved significantly. In terms of new set of challenges, I think marketing was a lot more easier and cheaper 3 to 4 years ago. And then as the number of brands keep increasing, as the competition increases, the ad bids become a lot more expensive. So our customer acquisition costs have sort of increased, and now we're trying to sort of bring that down by increasing lifetime value as well. So there are these challenges in terms of unit economics, and then of course raw material costs going up and down. And then we also have products that come in from China. So dealing with the bureaucracies there is a challenge that we're facing today because of the sort of government difficulties as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant challenge. Every day is a battle. You're trying to put out one fire or the other at some point in time.
Yep. And Yashas, if you can so if you can break down the various aspects of building a D2C brand. So one piece is building a tech
Product.
or having a e-commerce. We'll one by one we'll go through everything.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
In terms of tech, what are the platforms you use? What would you recommend to the early stage startup founders?
Yeah. So this is actually a big debate within the D2C community, but I would strongly profess towards Shopify. There are other channels like CartRocket and WooCommerce. You can do a custom website on Magento. There's also BigCommerce, etc. But none of them have the feature set or the ability to innovate as quickly or as efficiently as Shopify does. right? The plugins are far more simpler to build, are far more quicker to build on Shopify. The backend is extremely smooth. Shopify itself builds a lot of apps that plug into other Indian sort of e-commerce players in terms of logistics and operations and sourcing. So I would strongly profess that any D2C founder start off with Shopify. It's not even a debate in my head anymore, right? So yeah, so from a tech perspective, I'd say just go with Shopify. It's the easiest. It could work out to be a little bit more expensive, but the headache that it relieves is it's just worth it.
Wow. And about the product, so you have an idea that this is a gap in the market, so you can build something. So what was the process of, you identified designer, or if you can just run through what happened?
Yeah. So we noticed the problem, and we sort of posed the problem. We knew who could get this executed, right? So first we had to get a designer on board to design the product. So that involves posing the problem to the designer and then working through a few iterations to come to the final design of the product. So this would be like a production design that we can go to a manufacturer with and get them to produce. So once the design aspect is done, then we had to hunt for manufacturers. So we looked at manufacturing in India, we looked at manufacturing in China. We actually started off with manufacturing in India with some manufacturers in Delhi. So yeah, so that's the sort of step we take. You identify the manufacturing, you do a couple of rounds of sampling. If you're happy with it, you go ahead. Otherwise, you again start from scratch and then find another manufacturer. So, but it's always advisable to have at least 2 manufacturers on board and probably do a product split 40, 60, 50, 50, whatever it is, to ensure that you're not hedged, ensure that you're hedged against manufacturer risk.
Correct. And you briefly mentioned about this. So once you identify a product, build a tag, and getting the word out becomes a challenge. So in your case, what happened, and what would you advise to the early stage startup founders?
Yeah, so I would say D2C primarily is a launch strategy, right? So you're really thinking about reaching your audience online. So that's where the marketing piece comes in. So I think Facebook and Instagram have built a great platform for D2C brands to take advantage of the large audience, right? And it's fairly reasonable from an advertising perspective to advertise through Facebook and Instagram. And it also depends on what type of product you have. If you have a visual product like ours, then you sort of use Facebook and Instagram's platform. But if you have a more search-oriented product, then you use Google. So, or you use a mix of both. So these aspects come into play, but largely that's how you would reach an audience.
Yep. And one of the debate comes is having your own platform exclusively, or you sell it on marketplaces.
Yeah.
What's your take?
Yeah, it's a big debate. I think this is very product and category specific. So let me just talk through like our thought process in terms of advantages and disadvantages. So for us, unit economics was incredibly important, right? We were a small we haven't raised any money except for the initial round, and we've been bootstrapped ever since, profitable. So for us, that unit economics piece was very important. Our customer acquisition cost on our own platforms was far cheaper than the commissions that we had to pay on marketplaces, right? So for the longest time, we were never on any other marketplace. Recently, we went onto a marketplace because we had that 2-year window to build out our brand and brand ethos and tone and communication strategy. So then we sort of moved on to Amazon, Nykaa, etc. Right. So, sorry, just a second. Move to another room. Yeah. So I think that's the reasoning that we would follow. Being on a marketplace doesn't allow you to brand control that you would require. So it's important to be on your own platform first if you're very strong about brand, which we were in that sense.
Okay. And another important aspect, you briefly spoke about that also, logistics part. Has that become like, is it a solved problem now to figure out a logistics partner for your brand, or there are challenges that people end up facing now?
No, I think it's fairly easy to find a logistics partner now. Again, depending on your product and category, it's you have certain logistic providers who specialize in certain functions as well. So it's completely okay. Sorry, just a second. Sorry, just one second.
Yep. And Yashas, meanwhile, you do that. We will do a small round of introductions from the friends who are right now with us. So, Karthik, Akshay, Honish, Alkesh, Sudarshan, if you can hear us and if you can, some of you can briefly introduce yourself, that will help us know each other also. And that will give us some time till the time Yashas comes back. Honish, Akshay, Karthik,
Uh,
yes,
yeah,
Honish.
hi Jatin. This is Honish here. So, I'm an aspiring D2C entrepreneur. It's like we have finished the legal formalities. We're planning to launch soon into food products, health food products. So, just no attending this from people to understand as to how to scale up a D2C brand. And yeah, I mean, this is what I'm here for. So I want to understand, so I don't make the same mistakes and I do the right things. I don't
Correct.
go. Uh, I can accelerate my this thing.
And
But
Honish, you're based in Pune, right?
no, actually, I moved back to my hometown, Baroda.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So now
And
I'm based in Baroda.
and at what stage you are in of your business?
Like currently, we are I mean, we are getting some, just awaiting some final regulatory approvals and licenses and all those things. As soon as we get that, I think we should be in a position to start that.
And
But
what if you can just tell us a little more about your products so that everybody gets more context about it?
it's like we are trying to get into healthy snacks,
Okay,
healthy foods and snacks.
okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Alkesh, Sudarshan, Keshav, Akshay, if you if one of your can get to the interruption. Else we'll just get started with our discussion with the Yashas. And in case if you have any questions, you can ask those questions or in the chat, or we'll have you speak up. And friends who are watching, joining us from social media, in case if you have any question, you can ask in the comments. We will take up those questions in the second half. Yes, Yashas.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So about the logistics part, you were saying that there are
Yeah,
now.
yeah. So I don't think logistics is a challenge anymore. There are third-party logistics providers and aggregators now. So there's ShipRocket, VamaShip, I think Logistics, Pika. There are a bunch of these third-party logistic providers and aggregators. You can also work with companies directly. So we work with FedEx and Delivery directly because we have certain SOPs in terms of QC and how they need to handle the product, etc. So those things really matter to us and is very important. So I don't think logistics is a challenge as much.
Okay. And about the team, how big is your team, or what kind of challenges that people end up facing in terms of team while building a D2C brand?
Yeah, so we're actually a very lean team. It's just 5 people that run the entire operations. So I'm not sure in terms of team how you. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Yeah, facing some issues with the internet. Yeah, in terms of team, I think fairly keep it lean and keep it simple. I think that's the most important thing you can do. It's unnecessary to add costs, especially if you're bootstrapped. If you
Yes,
Hello?
yes. We
Yeah,
missed the last
yeah.
sentence, but I'll just move on to the next question that I.
Yeah, I was basically saying that it's important to keep your costs low in the beginning. So yeah, I would suggest keeping the team small.
Yep. And in terms of those individuals who are part of your team, were they from a D2C background, or you train them so that and they adapt to this particular, or sometimes you have to be very hands-on, managing the
Yeah,
logistics at the same time.
I think having an e-commerce background is important. So we picked people for the function, right? So we needed someone in warehouse management, in operations, and in marketing. And design. So it depends where you need the people and the team from. Again, depending on your product and category, but e-commerce experience is quite useful to have.
Okay. Honis, do you have any specific question that you may want to ask? Since you are a aspiring D2C founders, you are the ideal target audience this session is based for. Honish.
Not just sorry, I'm just checking. Actually, sorry, I missed the initial part. Actually, I think I some initial 5-10
Yep.
minutes.
So in case like just probably I'll make it easier for you. You are building a D2C brand. So there are various things that you figured out. There are various things that you may want to figure out. So anything that you need an opinion for?
Yeah, I mean, I just like, I think Shopify, I have heard, like, no, I've also attended sessions on that. I think that is fairly, I think it's fairly this thing. And logistics also, I think now there are several shipping aggregators, as you rightly said. And I don't like, I think then it comes down to, building marketing and community. I just wanted to know, how do you build a community around your brand? I think that's what, matters, because the bigger community, lesser is the cost of marketing, actually.
Yeah, very good question, Honish. Yes.
Yeah. So Honish, I think it's again, community is an extremely important part in the D2C space, and you need followers of your product and people who really vouch for your product, right? So I think it's really important to define your brand and define who your customer audience is, and you need to talk to them as a genuine brand, right? As a genuine person who's behind the brand and who sort of embodies the values of the brand. And that's how people will sort of follow you. If you stand for something, so for example, in the healthy snack segment, if you stand for a particular cause or a particular reason, then people will start following you automatically. The way you reach out to them is through marketing again. So you constantly push your communication and your values and your ethics. And then people will start following you as they believe in your product and your vision and your beliefs in the product itself. So that's how you sort of build the community, and it's always a two-way conversation. You have to keep speaking to your customers and keep listening to them, and that's how you can improve the product as well.
Yep. And you mentioned about the leveraging various digital platforms. So in your experience for Everpret, which platform has worked really well, and any specific insight if you can share for any of the platforms that you can share?
Are you asking from a marketing point of view?
Yes, marketing point of view,
So
and engaging your community.
Yeah, so for us, Facebook and Instagram have been really important. The Facebook advertising platform, but Instagram as a channel to even communicate and build a community. So that's been really important for us. So all our conversations with customers happen mostly on Instagram and through our customer service email channels, right? So in terms of insights, because we are a very visually driven product, that's why Facebook and Instagram works for us. And we've been able to maintain a certain brand aesthetic on Instagram visually, right? So which has really helped us as well in terms of the community, in terms of the audience that we target, in terms of the audience that we pull into our community. So in terms of any, again, like I said, it depends on which category and which product it is. But I think Instagram would be a really, really good platform to help build engagement and help build a community as well.
Okay. Friends, and do you have any question? Priyam, Karthik, Alkesh, we'll use next 5 minutes for those participant questions or brief.
Yeah, Jitender, can you hear me?
Yes, Karthik.
Yeah, see, I just wanted to know how Yashas is handling the weight reconciliation problem, because we are helping a lot of brands. We are basically a dropshipping company, and we are working with 100 plus brands in shipping, e-commerce, everything from technical too. So the issue that we are facing is like weight reconciliation problem. After you make a shipment, so you will suddenly get a bill. They will say like the weight that you guys given is actually much lesser than what actual weight is. So it is a problem that exists for a long time. We couldn't able to clear it. We tried with multiple shipments. So Yash's item being in a bag, which I'm sure that it will quite a weight item. So how does he manage that?
Yeah. So Karthik, it is a problem for us as well, but we've been able to reduce the problem significantly over the past sort of 2 years. We've worked closely with our logistics providers to also, we've kept our products and SKUs very simple, right? So we have one product and we have one packaging box. So the dimension is constant throughout every single item that goes out of our warehouse. So we've been able to use that as a sort of clause in the contract saying that we should never be billed over this particular weight because our package is of a single dimension. And that's how we've been able to tackle that problem. And that happens for us with every brand. So even the other 2 brands that we run, even if we have 2 or 3 packaging options, so we tell them these are the only packages and this is the weight that you can bill us on.
Awesome. Friends, do you anyone else have any questions? You can ask Priyam, Sudarshan, Keshav, Alkesh.
Hi, am I
Yes,
audible?
please. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, please.
Yeah. So when we talk about direct to consumer brands, the initial overhead cost and the initial operation cost is very high. Later on with scale, it decreases. So any suggestions on how to manage that initial cost from managing the operations to approaching to the customer?
What could you give me a little bit
Yeah,
more details on the
sure, sure,
costs?
sure. So basically, I run a startup called Urban Khet where we provide the vegetables directly from farmers to customers, like literally directly from farmers to customers. Packing, sorting, and everything is done at a farm level, and it's directly given to the customers. When we have lower volumes, the whole operation cost increases for us. But at a sweet spot where there's good number of orders, it's more affordable to do direct to customers rather than the conventional system. So my question is related to the early stage where we have less number of orders, then managing the operations. How would you suggest to manage the cost and the leakages? We did some decent turnover, but still we had enough leakages to the revenues were less. Yeah.
Yeah. So Priyam, I think in regards to your category, it is a category that has high operational costs, very different to the category that we're in, because the bulk of the initial funding that we received went into inventory. So for us, it was largely purchase inventory, sell inventory, generate cash flow, and sort of follow that cycle in a profitable manner, right?
Okay.
But for you, it's very different. So the only suggestion I would have is to try and minimize the costs that you feel are unnecessary. So go through every single line item and see what is necessary and what is not necessary, and keep your operations as lean as possible.
Okay.
So that'll help you sort of preserve cash flows for where you need to deploy it. And for you, again, acquisition is a very important piece of the business, right?
Yeah.
So apart from sourcing your product from farmers and operationally, again, heavy, you will also be spending a lot of money in terms of acquiring customers. But the good thing in your case is that you can build out a repeat customer base very easily, as opposed to a category like ours. So I think you'll need to focus on community, you'll need to focus on customer experience, and you'll need to focus on retention more than acquisition. So you need to keep getting customers back into your sort of channels.
Okay. Just a follow-up question. How do you think that in the time of COVID, we should work on community building? Is the digital media like Instagram and things like that is the only source, or we can look for anything else as well?
I think digital is a very easy, sort of efficient way to reach out to your customers. I think it's also a great idea to develop. This also gives you the time to develop stronger relationships with your customers. You can start emailing them or giving them a call, asking for feedback and asking for what sort of products they want from you and how you can improve as a service. So I think this sort of gives you the time to spend on your customers on a one-to-one basis.
Okay. Thank you.
And Yashas, when in early days of a startup, sometimes there are a lot of magic moments. Some celebrity talks about you, get featured in a newspaper, somebody gives a big order. So in your case, what were those interesting magic moments? They are not magic. You put in a lot of efforts, but what are those big things that happened?
Actually, ours was when one of our products was picked out by a Bollywood celebrity stylist to be used in a photo shoot and a movie potentially. So I think that was really big for us.
And how that happened?
It just happened. They just contacted us on Instagram. They came across us through our marketing, and they contacted us, and then we sort of gave the product, and so it was a great moment that it was being used at a level like that. And it also helped us in terms of the brand. It helped build credibility as well. So yeah, I think that was a very special moment for us.
Yeah. And you are into D2C since a lot of time, and you are helping a lot of other founders also. So according to you, what are the mistakes that D2C founders end up making repeatedly?
Yeah. So I think it's, again, there are a lot of questions that come around categories, right? And my answer would depend on category and product and things like that. A lot of variables in the space. But if there are a couple of mistakes that I can point out to, I would say one would be product. I think really focus on the product. make sure that the product is right, make sure the product is tested, make sure that you already have 100, 200 customers who really love your product before you even go to the market. Right. And apart from the product, I think you need to have a very, very strong brand proposition. You need to know what your brand stands for. You need to know how your brand is different. And you need to know what values that the brand brings out in. So this helps you in sort of two folds. One is it adds a premium to your valuation at a later point in time. And second, it helps build a community, right? Which is extremely important because you can't keep acquiring customers over time. It just becomes very expensive, very unsustainable. So that's really important.
Yep. Karthik, you wanted to ask a follow-up question. Karthik? You
Hello.
have to.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Karthik.
Yeah, I just wanted to know whether, Yashas, you're using any PR team. Do you suggest any PR connection? Because, PR is like a very big thing for a lot of startups, and we do not
Yeah.
get the right connections. So if you could help with that.
Yeah, so PR is important. Again, it's very category dependent. But I would suggest if you're in a small scale, I would suggest going with a PR freelancer. You don't need to hire an agency. I'm not sure whether it's worth it. But once you get to sort of mid to high level revenues, then you can go ahead with an agency because then you'll need a lot more brains thinking about your product and working on multiple categories, multiple products that you have in your portfolio.
Okay, great. And regarding your catalog, I checked your website. Like you guys seem to have two variation products. So is that a conscious decision that you don't want to increase the SKUs?
Are you asking in terms of choice?
Yes, right. The number of varieties.
So our basically our vision for Everpret, right, is to create thoughtfully designed product under each category for working women. So you would never see us have 5 different designs of handbags or bags or trousers or blazers. You'll only see one thoughtfully designed product. So our belief is that it's sort of two-pronged. One is we play on the paradox of choice. We tell our customers that yes, there are so many choices in the market, but you only need one, right? And this is the one that we have designed for you. And this goes across categories, and that's the vision for the brand. We will be building out more categories in the future. And second goes to in terms of economics and operations, it's just a lot more easier to control demand and supply when you have minimal SKUs, especially in the accessories and clothing space, because you have a lot of dead stock otherwise, which is extremely inefficient and expensive. So those are the two reasons why we decided to go ahead with this model.
Okay, wonderful. So don't you think like you're actually restricting the customer? Someone likes your product and she may like to order other products from you. So if you just have the reason that I'm asking this question is we are coming up with a brand and we are dealing with the same issue. Should we go for a broad range of SKUs or should we limit ourselves? So that's the question we are dealing with currently.
Yeah.
So what I thought is if we are going to
So we specifically decided to. I mean, any D2C brand initially introduces one product, right, to sort of appeal to a consumer, and then you can sort of grow into what you envision the brand to be. So if you think about Bonobos, for example, in the US, they started off with trousers for men, but now they cater to men across multiple categories, from denim to blazers to trousers to swim shorts. So it really helps you establish get into other categories as well, but over time.
Okay, great.
And Yashas, 2 examples, one international and one India based. Which are your favorite D2C brands and why do you like them?
Yeah, so favorite D2C brands, brand outside of India, I would say would be Allbirds.
Okay.
Yeah, and within India, I would say Chumbak in terms of their operations and branding.
And why Allbirds? Why do you like?
I think they've ticked every single tick box in building out a D2C brand, right? So they've got the product right. The brand stands for something, a strong cause, which is an environmental sustainability cause, and they have a very strong community. So starting with just one product, they've expanded again into a bunch of ranges, and they've also expanded internationally very quickly. And I think they've done a fabulous job in terms of the branding, in terms of the product, and how everything ties in together and packaged as a whole sort of piece.
Yep. And during the early days of a D2C brand, you start online, sell it on marketplaces. Once you achieve a certain scale, then you start thinking about physical
Retail. Yeah.
aspect. Like,
Yeah.
So in your case, what you are, and if you can share some insights around that.
So I might not be the best person to provide much insight on this because we haven't reached the point where we want to go retail as yet. I think we have a huge audience to tap into in the online space itself. Even if we do retail, I think it'll be sort of shop in shop models where it's not a full out blown retail store. And given the current situation, I think we'd probably push our retail plans by another 2.5 years easy. I don't see retail picking up very soon. And also that gives us time to build out our categories as well.
Yep. Friends, if you have any question, Alkesh, Keshav, Ram, Shudhakar, in case if you have any questions, you can ask. It's 5:36. We will finish in another 10-15 minutes. You want to take up any question, Sudarshan, Keshav, Priyam, or Alkesh? I'll run through with my question, and there were some question on the YouTube live also. So what's your long shot, Yashas? So there is this guy Malav who is part of our Pune team. He asked this question to everybody. So what is your long shot with Everpret?
Okay, so again, like I said, our vision is to build a brand, a go-to brand for working women. We want to establish a product, a very thoughtfully, functionally driven product in each category. So we're already sampling in other categories such as footwear and clothing and luggage as well. So whenever a woman 23 to 36-year-old is entering or growing in her career, she will think about Everpret for any of her work needs. Right. So whether she needs to buy a new outfit for work, or whether she needs to buy new shoes for work, whether she needs to buy something for her work travel, Everpret will be the brand that they will think about.
And how do you communicate this message? You educate them, or there is a very specific need for this kind of product? That's why you fit in really well in that need, or
Yes.
you have to educate people that probably you can use this thing.
Yeah, so there is a lot of education as well, but I think our marketing sort of takes care of that. So we do highly specific targeted marketing to appeal to working women and sort of selling our proposition, right? Why is our handbag better than any other handbag that you get in the market, right? Because it takes XXX box. So that's the sort of methodology that we follow, and that's how we will also introduce our new products. Whether it's a backpack, whether it's a shoe, why is this shoe better for your work than any other shoe you get in the market? Why is this suitcase better for your work? So that's sort of model. But again, like I mentioned, it's one thoughtfully designed product across categories.
Yep. Keshav asked this question, but Keshav, we kind of took that question in the early on, but still I'll just add on to one more pointer around the team. So for a D2C brand, one important thing comes across is having a good social media. So you build a community on Instagram. So how do you find that right person who manages that and be at the same time stays creative as well? So in your case, you trained someone, you hired some rock star social media guy, or
yeah, I mean, I think a couple of approaches you can take. I came from an agency background. It was a creative agency, so that wasn't a very difficult problem to solve. But again, you can find social media managers and a creative person and a designer who helps you with creatives, or you can work with freelancers that provide you with creatives on a regular basis. Right, so you can tackle this problem in different ways. You don't have to hire a full-time person. You could work on X number of creatives per week or X number of creatives per month sort of model as well. So it doesn't really add to your costs on a month-on-month basis, and you can again do your photo shoots as and when you require, plan based on your social calendar. I need X number of posts, so I need X number of photos. So yeah, so that basically the point is you don't need to really hire a full-time person. You can work with, especially in the creative industry, you can work with freelancers really well, and it saves costs, and it's a sort of on-demand basis. So it's a good operational mix.
And one of the series we run is about learnings from failure. So in your experience, one specific failure that you had, and what did you learn from and you are applying now?
Yeah. I think our biggest failure has been quality of the product in our initial stages. So I think we overlooked QC, especially when we sort of moved to China, right? So we received a bunch of products that were damaged. So that was a huge learning for us, huge expense as well. So what we did there was to ensure that our QC process was re-audited and redone and reworked, and we ensure that every single product is checked before it gets dispatched from the manufacturer, and we do a verification process as well. So I think that was our biggest learning, our biggest failure and biggest learning.
Yeah. Ram has asked, what tools are you using for ClickFunnels and managing social media engagement and scheduling?
So we don't use any tools per se, but if you do need requirement, I would say Buffer is good for social media management and scheduling. And actually, you can just set up your funnel sort of process through your email marketing channels. So we use MailChimp professional version. So that's how we've set up our drip marketing channel. But apart from that, Facebook and Google have a very well integrated remarketing and conversion funnel built in. So that's what we use. So essentially we use MailChimp, Facebook, Google, and products within those three that work for us.
And there is a lot of debate about this big tech owning your audience. So in your case, like, do you consciously feel that, okay, someday you'd want to own your audience, or a lot of your engaging customers remain on those big tech platforms?
Yeah. So again, like I said, we've largely been operating on our own website and our own channel. So we do own our customer data. That is actually good. It's great that you bring that up, because that is one of the disadvantages of being on a marketplace. You don't get the customer data, right? Especially on an Amazon. Even actually on Nika and stuff, you can still get that data, but on Amazon you wouldn't. So that is a trade-off, but I guess the trade-off is visibility. So depending on the product and category, and if it's a highly searched or a highly visible product, it's worth being on a marketplace. So to draw an example, Wow Skincare, Wow Sciences is sort of heavily reliant on marketplaces, because they have a great product that is highly searched and has done well on the platform, right? So a product like that, which is high volume, low price, sort of fits in the marketplace mix much better than a product like ours would.
Wow, awesome. So we are into the last 4 or 5 minutes of this session.
Yeah.
So we try to do a round, quick fireside kind of a thing. Which is your favorite book?
My favorite book would be 0 to 1.
Okay. And if you listen to podcasts, which one?
How I built this.
Yes, this is amazing. They have a fantastic episode on a lot of interesting D2C.
Yeah.
The Allbirds episode is
huge learnings on D2C. Yeah.
And if you get a chance to work with a specific individual, who are the living individuals, who would that be?
I'm not sure where I would sort of do this, but I guess I would say any of the founders of Airbnb.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, different from a D2C model, but strong founders, strong operationally, just very thoughtful people.
Okay. Ram, the podcast is How I Built This. And Yashas,
yeah.
I forgot my question by responding to Ram. I'll have to. Okay. So Yashas, if you were not doing this, like building a D2C brand, what else you would have been doing?
I think since post-graduation, I've always been interested in the e-commerce space. So I don't think I would be doing anything else apart from this, really. Even the stint at an agency wasn't really a great fit for me personally. And this is something I really enjoy. I enjoy building brands. I enjoy sort of bringing products to life, and I sort of enjoy executing on that. So I think I don't really envision myself in another role.
Awesome. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. We are towards the last piece of this thing. The podcast and recommendations on each, we have an ongoing thread where we mention all the recommendations that our speakers mention or the folks from the community mentions. You can check that out. So yes, as last part. So think of this as a university class, and now there is a convocation, and you are a chief guest at that convocation. But you have to finish your convocation speech in one line. So moment you end your sentence, I'll close this call. So we want to end this call on a high. That with the momentum we will end. So what is your one-line message to the early stage DTC founders?
I would say don't be afraid to bring your product to market. Test, sample, but keep fighting and bring it out to market, because every idea is unique and it's important to have new products in the market.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, Yashas, for kindly